Professor Joe Fortunato with today's edition of Film School. And it was about a week ago that we were talking about the tragic death of Gene Hackman.
We're way past big speech time. I want to thank you for the last few months.
That's a little bit of Hackman there.
It's been very special.
From the movie Hoosiers. I've gone on record in saying this for about the last 20, 25 years. He is my all-time favorite male actor. I usually don't miss a movie that he has been in. I always thought he got great performances no matter what, going back to the 70s and 80s and, of course, up until he retired about a decade ago. But I'm going to let the expert take the story from there. Let's bring him in, Joe Fortunato, as he takes us to film school. Joe, your show, my friend. Go ahead.
Well, good morning, Greg. Good morning, everybody. And yeah, today we're going to celebrate the life and the career of Gene Hackman. As you said, we lost him last week. And even though there's a little mystery surrounding his passing, we're not going to focus on that today. Today is more of a celebration. And let's not forget that he was 95 years old when he passed. And that is a life very well lived. And Gene Hackman, as you said, is one of our greatest actors, really of all time, and certainly in the last couple of decades. Last 4 or 5 decades. He has 5 Oscar nominations, 2 wins. He won a Best Actor for The French Connection and a Supporting Actor for Unforgiven. If you look at his IMDb page, he has over 101 films to his credit, so very prolific. He was born in 1930. As I said, he lived to the ripe old age of 95. His breakthrough role was in Bonnie and Clyde from 1967. We'll talk about that in a moment. But he really was the epitome of the new Hollywood. He had intensity, grit, brusqueness that many other actors could never imagine. And he was really suited for the types of kind of anti-hero roles, morally gray characters that would define the Hollywood Revolution in the decade of the 70s. So he was, it was a perfect person at the perfect time. He played all kinds of roles: cocky cops, doomed detectives, corporate fat cats, kindly coaches, as you pointed out there a moment ago, any number of grade A all-American jerks. His sheer range is really impressive. He could be both a hero and a villain, sometimes both at the same time. He was very relatable as an everyman kind of thing. He was equally adept in character roles and leading roles. So it really is a remarkable career. And what I want to do today is kind of go through 4, 5, 6 of his films. These aren't necessarily his best, although kind of some of them are. It's really more of a, hey, these are the essential Gene Hackman. If you're going to go out and watch one of his movies, I would say pick one of these or do them all and have some fun. So you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. And again, no particular order, not necessarily chronological or anything, but I'm going to start with Unforgiven in 1992. And this is Hackman deservedly won his second Oscar playing Little Bill Daggett, a corrupt sheriff in a compromised frontier town in Clint Eastwood's Western. He directed the Western. He's not just a joy watching Hackman. It's not just a joy watching him share the screen with Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, Richard Harris, and playing off these, veterans so beautifully. But what really sticks with you is how Hackman shows you how this character of Daggett really believes he's the righteous hero of this story, even though that's not the way we see it. So one of the great Westerns and a great performance, an Oscar-winning performance by him. Another film, this one is from the mid-'70s, part of that new Hollywood era I was talking about, is The Conversation. Yeah. He plays Harry Call, who is a surveillance expert, and he's one of the quietest of all the great movie characters. And this is made in the middle of Francis Ford Coppola's 1970s hot streak, and Coppola directed The Conversation. This is a portrait, it's Watergate era paranoia. It's one of the great performances of the decades. And what's sort of interesting is his role as Harry Call is much more subtle and subdued. It's 180 degrees opposite of Popeye Doyle, which is what we're going to talk about next, the character in The French Connection. And this is probably Hackman's defining role of his career. He won Best Actor Oscar for this. The French Connection came out in 1971. As I mentioned, he played Popeye Doyle, a unambiguously a villain of a cop who's very grungy, early 70s New York. He's bashing heads. He's racially profiling. He's doing, any manner of things that would normally get a regular cop drummed off the force. He does it his way. He's sort of the definition of he's doing it his way, and he doesn't give a darn about the rules. Like I said, this won Hackman his first Academy Award. Everyone remembers the famous chase scene in The French Connection, and Hackman later joked that maybe the car should have won the Oscar. But Hackman obviously is, to pardon the pun, he's really the engine that drives this whole movie, and it's a tour de force performance, and definitely one you need to check out if you haven't seen it. I mentioned his sort of breakthrough role came in Bonnie and Clyde in 1967, and this is, like I said, his breakthrough. He got a supporting actor nomination for this role as Warren Beatty's older brother and another criminal part of the Darrow gang. And as I said, he didn't win, but he was nominated for this. He was virtually an unknown at this part. He'd had some small film roles. That same year, ironically, he was fired from The Graduate. He had been cast to play Mr. Robinson, but then Mike Nichols deemed that he was too young for the part, and he's kind of right about that at the time. So he could have been Mr. Robinson in The Graduate, but instead he is one of the gang in Bonnie and Clyde. And again, just a wonderful tour de force. I've got two more, but do you have anything to add before I go through?
No, I love all the choices so far, and again, like I opened up a couple of minutes ago, I kind of like everything he's in. And you're right. I think The Conversation, Joe, might be one of his most underrated roles. I thought he was fabulous and kind of a little bit of a different role for him, but it's a fabulous story, and he was great in it.
I agree. And of all the ones I'm reading here, that's probably the one I'm guessing the most of our listeners haven't seen. So check that one out if you get a chance. But kind of rolling through some of these other films. I'll go with the one that you had mentioned at the top of the show, Hoosiers from 1986. And Hackman thought this film was going to be a flop, but it turned out to be a huge hit. He brings incredible texture to the role of Coach Norman Dale. He arrives in the small town of Hickory, Indiana, to coach this local small boys basketball team. But he brings with him a lifetime of baggage to this role. And underneath that coach's hard shell, there's a man who's desperate for a second chance, either giving it, as he does to Dennis Hopper's character, or getting it himself. So very much a nuanced role in what might otherwise have just been a bit of a generic sports movie. And he really raises the profile of that film. And the other one that I'm going to mention, and then I have a couple of honorable mentions I'll finish with, but the other one that I kind of consider part of the essential Hackman experience might be a little bit of a surprise. I'm going with The Poseidon Adventure from 1972. Now, The Poseidon Adventure was one of those many, somewhat cheesy, over-the-top disaster films of the 70s. But again, Hackman and the rest of his cast, to be honest, really raises this one up, and I think this is probably the film that is probably still the most liked disaster film of that era, even today. And Hackman, if you've never seen it, he plays an unorthodox priest who's a man, part of the passengers aboard. He's sort of the leader of the survivors when the ship goes upside down and the disaster occurs. His main responsibility seems to be calming the hysterical folks, counseling common sense, engaging in screaming matches with Ernest Borgnine, and he gives a perfect example of how a great actor can add sort of depth and feeling, even to the otherwise cheesiest of blockbusters, and it's just a lot of fun. So that's one you want to check out. A few others I'm not going to go into much detail about, but just I couldn't kind of do this without talking or at least mentioning these. His very small role in Young Frankenstein. Yeah. He could do comedy too. The Mel Brooks horror comedy. Royal Tenenbaums from 2001 is probably his last great movie. He had done some movies after that, but that's a great role for him. Maybe his career capper in that. And it's me, Ray. I can't go without mentioning Superman from 1978, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And Hackman plays a spectacularly funny, charismatic, selfish, narcissistic Lex Luthor. It's just the perfect foil for Christopher Reeve's virtuous Man of Steel, and it's a wonderful role. Some other ones: Get Shorty, Crimson Tide, Mississippi Burning, No Way Out. There's just so many great films, and we want to just thank Mr. Hackman for bringing all of us just decades of entertainment and enjoyment.
You were spot on, Joe. That was great. And again, I'm a big fan of his. Mississippi Burning to me is another just terrific role by him. And you're right, Crimson Tide, Enemy of the State, where he played that IT geek guy. Then he was just terrific in there. And you can't forget him. You're exactly right. Lex Luthor. There's been a lot of Lex Luthors, but I don't think anybody played it like Gene Hackman. Well done, Joe, my friend.
I've got a number of things coming up this month that I want you to be aware of. I kind of put this on the shelf because we were talking Oscars the last couple of weeks, but now I want to get the word out. March 20th, that's Thursday, March 20th at 6 p.m., I'm going to be doing a live Fortunato Film School, Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is sponsored by the City of Green, a free event, and that is going to be at Central Park at the City of Green. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark, and if you haven't, we did this last year at Jilly's, and some of you came out. I would say come out again and bring a friend. You know how much fun you had. And if you missed it that time, here's your chance to see it again. And if you've never seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, by gosh, you gotta check this out. And if you have, I think, oh, I've seen it a million times, I don't need to see this again. I would encourage you to come out. I guarantee that you will learn something new the way I present it to our audience. So I want to make sure that we have as many people out there as we can. That's Thursday, March 20th, 6 p.m. At Central Park in the City of Green. You can get that information on the City of Green webpage or go to my webpage, joefortunato.net. And I also want to mention briefly, if you're in the Cleveland area listening to us or anywhere you want to travel, Saturday, March 22nd, I will be at the Cleveland Fan Expo. This is like the Cleveland Comic-Con. That's March 22nd at 3 p.m. I'm going to be doing a panel on, you guessed it, Jaws. You're going to need a bigger boat, the legacy and legend of Jaws. We are going to have a panel at Cleveland Fan Expo on March 22nd at 3 p.m. There is a cost to get into the expo for that, but you'll want to check that out. Again, also information at joefortunato.net. So a lot of things coming up in March, and I want to invite all of our friends out there to join us.
That's terrific stuff, Joe. Love seeing that for sure. All right, my friend, we'll reconnect next week. Thanks for the time.
I look forward to it. See you then.
You got it. There you go. Film study professor Joe Fortunato joining us live this morning here on 93.5, 1590 WAKR, taking time for us each and every Friday. And great piece there on Gene Hackman for sure.